Hi, everyone. Today is September 13th, and we're talking a little bit about a few things that would make a difference in the language learning. And this is based on some advice that I had recently heard in a video from Jim Rohn. And he was mentioning how, like, in various areas of one's life, um, there might not be like 100 things that are important. There might be a very small handful of, let's say, about 5 or 6 things that would make a difference. And if those 5 or 6 things are neglected, then that would lead to a lot of problems. And so the opposite way here, kind of looking at, like, trying to identify what are these kind of 5 or 6 things that successful people would be doing. And there's even the book, Stephen Covey, like The 7 Habits of Successful People. So, or with the Miracle Morning, with Hal Elrod, looking at 6 very transformative habits that could be in the morning, such as exercise, meditation, writing, visualizations, affirmations, and those kinds of things, if done overall, could have a very positive impact. Sometimes what I do for the brainstorming on these kinds of things, if it's challenging to go straight at the thing and identify, like, well, what are those 5 things for language learning, at least for myself, we try to think of, like, what are these 5 or 6 things that I'm currently not doing, or my reasons for not doing them. And so, for example, neglecting the reading and the listening and the writing, this just puts some pressure on, when I'm speaking, it's just putting pressure on, like, recycling mistakes or limited vocabulary, and those gaps just stay gaps. I don't suddenly remember a word that I don't know if I don't bother to look it up. So that's one thing, is going back and listening to these recordings. So to, like, as I'm speaking here and I realize, like, okay, I didn't know the word important, or I forgot how to say, this word. I've learned over the years now to stop kind of circumlocuting as much, or just trying to ramble and make some gibberish. I did that, like, a long time ago, where I would just kind of refuse to translate and give up and just say something in English. So I would just kind of keep pushing along in Spanish or French, for example. But that doesn't necessarily make the communication, like, clearer. It just kind of muddies it and makes it harder for a listener to figure things out. So one thing I've observed from the YouTube videos from, like, Lindy Botts or Boats, was just, if you can't think of a word, just go ahead and say it in English. So that just kind of, there's no need to just kind of beat around the bush and just waste more time. So right now in these videos where I'm speaking in Spanish, French, German, Italian, Russian, I'll just go ahead and if I don't know that word in German or Italian or Russian, I'll go ahead and just say that in English. The thing is, what I'm neglecting to do is enough of this, like, self-awareness and go back and listen, this time with like some kind of pencil and paper or a notebook, and write down those words that I was missing, and be a bit more kind of strategic with looking up these words that I'm missing. Don't just let them fester and remain unknown, because part of the benefit of speaking and recording is this constant probing, or constant like testing, kind of test driving. And the idea I have in my head here is like when car makers are purposely crash testing a car, they're looking for those weaknesses. They're looking for ways to fix or like debug, like a programmer looking for these potential weaknesses that are going to break a program or result in a failed execution. So with the speaking practice, I'm looking for, where are those gaps? Where are those weaknesses, or these kind of chinks in the armor? Where is that Achilles heel? And therefore, one of them is this neglecting to go back and listen and take notes, and then look up those new vocabulary words for these words that are missing from my vocabulary. Another thing is perhaps being too reliant on a common Romance language kind of set of core vocabulary, and just trying to kind of spread it around and recycle it. But because oftentimes there's a Slavic word has a different root, or a Germanic word that also has a different root. I can sometimes get away with this for Spanish and French and Italian, but then I do feel that my Italian is kind of just an italicized version of Spanish or something. But so I think it is important to kind of look up some of these differences, and try to practice them to expose those weaknesses in the vocabulary. Also looking at the grammar. I do have some lingering doubts on certain past forms, especially like in German. I know sometimes there is a GE prefix. Sometimes there's a different form. I remember I had a German teacher at the university who would get us into a kind of a rhythmic phrase of like haben, habe, hat, haben, hat, hatte, hat, gehat. If I'm not, I think that's what we were doing. I think it was looking at the verb itself, the third person singular, haben, hat, then the imperfect form, hatte, and then the third person, the past or the present perfect form, like so. Yeah, haben, hat, hatte, hat, gehat. And just kind of going through those forms, and we were supposed to be able to get most of the conjugations based on those 5 forms. Yeah, haben, hat, hatte, hat, gehat. Yeah, there are 4 forms. And I do have one of these. I think it's a Barron's kind of 501 or 1001 verb conjugation books. I mean, it's really old school now to have those books and see all those forms. I have several of those. I have them for the Spanish, the French, German, Latin, Russian. I think back in the US, I have it also for Portuguese and Italian. Never really got a chance to like bring them with me down here. That's something I would like to have as well. But I think I can find some of those PDFs and just like print out one of the pages for like avere or one or two like essential things of like be and have, as those are some auxiliary verbs and things. But for irregular verbs, looking up these past participles, that's something that kind of causes me to hesitate in Italian and in German. The Russian, it's a bit more of as an adjective with the like al, ala, ali, but also hesitating on these imperfective, perfective forms. I did create a program for that in Russian to help me practice, but again, I kind of neglect to look at that for like 5-10 minutes and just refresh my memory on those things and try to do that. But today I was doing some translating work, programming translating work. So I was looking into on the Google Sheets and using some random numbers like ran between, and creating a table, a simple table of like 4 verbs, 4 transitive verbs. Like I had, I saw, I bought, I ate, just like 4 things just to test out the program to see I could get it all working. And then determiners like the, this, that, in the singular, and some adjectives, small, big, red, new, and then some objects on like apple, computer, car, book, and then to concatenate them together. So it could be 4 sentences, but each of those had 4 variables that they could have. So that ended up being about like 256 from those 4 and 4 and 4 and 4 options, and then just kind of randomly selecting them based on some variables to get the random numbers from 1 to 4, and then use those variables to become like an array, kind of an array variable of the location in the array or something, and then to get them to concatenate into different sentences and using those random numbers in different orders, forwards, backwards, and then it kind of switched around. And then that could get me, let's say, like 4 sentences out of those 256 possibilities. And then from that, get the Google Translate tool programmatically to then take those randomized sentences in a way kind of like a Duolingo, just random sentences, except here I get to choose which words I want to put in that array. And I could even make it even more complicated, and even more permutations. If I added like a time expression, and like since all this was in the past, I could put this like yesterday, 2 days ago, on Monday, and then maybe the month or something. But just to add a couple more things as well, and then having the spreadsheet just instantly fill out with an English phrase and then its equivalent in Spanish and French and German, Italian and Russian, which if I'm making these recordings, this kind of, I want to be able to kind of express an idea in 6 languages and not really recognize that I have these gaps in 1 or 2 and double check to see those phrases. So this is a tool that I would like to be able to use for myself and possibly develop this into something that students could use. That's usually where I've done a little bit of the programming for myself, is test it, scratch my own itch, see if it can be helpful for me to keep track of vocabulary or to test my test myself, and then see if I can deploy this and get some feedback from students if it's helped. I haven't really done that in about 10 years or so. I did a lot more stuff on like JavaScript and HTML to kind of develop a couple of these tools. I know there's a lot more sophisticated stuff that exists on apps in the App Store and Play Store and those kinds of things that people are making. But I like to keep some of this basic programming available at my fingertips and see how I can expand on it to help people. But this is one way I could practice a little bit the grammar is reviewing those things in the past tense and going in and looking at what are those words that I forget how to say and that are causing me some troubles or I'm realizing I'm mixing things up. And one other thing I recognize is probably on the pronunciation for the German. I've been getting more and more feedback on little sounds that I need to work on. Like, so the observation here would be the like phonology going into like I know a long time ago I saw a friend of mine when I was in Paris taking some like CDs from Larousse and basically working on minimal pairs, and these were things like je veux y aller, je vais y aller. So it was catching some of the vowel sounds, or it was catching some consonant things as well, and just making the pronunciation a little bit more precise. And I'd like to see if I can find something for German, Italian, and Russian, because I know I've also gotten some feedback on the Italian to see certain things like the GL sound to try to improve that. So on the front, on basically what I'd like to do here is expand my vocabulary, review the grammar, a little bit more targeted, and see like, okay, I need to work on the past tense because I'm making some hesitations on these things, and like to see some of those sentences across the board, how they are being translated, and keep them simple enough that that I keep those combinations active in a way to like drill it for me, and then working on the pronunciation, because essentially, yeah, those are the three things I want to do, is be able to expand my vocabulary, solidify, make the grammar more robust and more automatic. So if I'm drilling it constantly, it should become more of a reflex instead of something I have to think about or kind of concentrate on. Eventually, when you're speaking, you want this to come kind of more automatically and correct at the same time. And without that hesitation there, that can become more smooth and fluid. And if there are those hesitations on the kind of what is that word that I don't know, and then what is that kind of past participle that I don't know, and am I pronouncing it correctly? So those little hesitations are slowing things down, and I would like to kind of make things better and faster. And then these other three things that would definitely be kind of improving as well would be the reading, listening, and writing. So yeah, if I recognize that I am neglecting a few of these things, these would kind of, so these antidote to the neglect is to like actively find these ways to work on the language maintenance. So those are what I would say for myself right now, these 6 things that I would like to focus on. Okay. Hola a todos. Hoy es el 13 de septiembre y estamos hablando un poco sobre cosas que podemos hacer para mantener y desarrollar y mejorar la práctica. Y acabo de pasar casi 20 minutos como y reflexionando sobre esto y viendo qué me ayuda y también qué exactamente quiero mejorar y cómo. Entonces, ahorita puedo decir que esos como 5 o 6 cosas son leer, escuchar y escribir. Y desafortunadamente yo siento que son cosas que como dejo al lado porque siento que necesito enseñar, necesito estar ocupado y luego no dedico tiempo como a mí mismo por el placer de aprender. Y como maestro, pues son cosas que puedo desarrollar para usar con los alumnos y mostrar que sí se puede. Y otras cosas para la parte oral son que no estoy escuchando mis grabaciones para tomar nota del vocabulario que me falta y luego tomar conciencia y hacer que aprendo ese vocabulario. Luego revisar la gramática porque me doy cuenta que hay formas de verbales y conjugaciones que donde tengo dudas y luego tengo retroalimentación sobre la pronunciación en alemán, en italiano. Entonces, la fonología es algo que me gustaría mejorar también. Entonces, con eso puedo, espero, hacer une mejoration. Bonjour tout le monde, aujourd'hui c'est le jour 13. On parle un peu sur comment améliorer, qu'est-ce que sont 5 ou 6 choses que je ne suis pas en train de faire et que je pourrais faire. Et je constate que pour la partie orale, je n'écoute pas suffisant. Donc ça, c'est un doute que j'ai. Suffisamment. J'aimerais revoir ça en français. Je n'écoute pas assez mes propres enregistrements pour prendre note des mots, des lacunes. Et après, des fois, il y a la grammaire où il y a un doute peut-être et la prononciation. J'ai eu de rétroalimentations pour la prononciation en allemand, en italien. Donc ce sont des trucs que j'aimerais améliorer. Et aussi pour la pratique de la langue, c'est aussi pas assez d'écoute, de lecture et d'écriture. Il y a 2 semaines, j'ai voulu écrire quelque chose vite fait dans un groupe dédié à l'écriture et j'ai réussi à faire ça vite fait, mais bon, j'ai pas pu continuer constamment, régulièrement, mais c'est quelque chose que je me rends compte que ça pourrait m'aider. Voilà. Hallo an alle, heute ist der 13. Tag und wir sprechen ein bisschen darüber, was können wir machen, wenn wir wollen verbessern. Und ich habe auf Englisch gesprochen und ich habe gesagt, dass ich sehe, dass es gibt Vokabeln, dass ich sage auf Englisch, wenn ich weiß es nicht und dann ich sehe, dass vielleicht Sarah oder Sybil haben gesagt, dass du kannst es sagen und auch für die Aussprache. Ich habe gesagt etwas wie Website, Zeit, und das ist die Zeit, aber Zeit und dann ich lese nicht so viel, ich höre nicht so viel und ich schreibe nicht so viel. Und ich denke, dass machen diese 6 Dinge sind eine gute Idee für mein Deutsch zu verbessern. Ja. Ciao a tutti, oggi è il giorno 13. Parlo un po' di come migliorare l'italiano. E in inglese ho detto che possibilmente devo ascoltare queste registrazioni per vedere quale parole non so e scrivere per luogo imparare queste parole. Voglio vedere la grammatica perché ho visto che ci sono verbi o forme verbali che non ho imparato correttamente, e c'è sounds in italiano che non ho pronunciato correttamente, e non leggo, non ascolto, non scrivo, e questo non è bene per migliorare una lingua straniera. Devo fare tutto questo и questo è tutto. Grazie. Всем привет, сегодня 13 день, и мы говорим немного о том, что как получить иностранные языки. Я вижу, что, например, когда я делаю эти видеозаписи, иногда я не, почти никогда слышу, что я говорил, поговорил, чтобы писать сообщения и слова, которые я не знаю, и потом выучить эти новые слова. Также у меня есть учебки для грамматики и произношения. Иногда я не знаю, это купить, купать. И я не читаю, слышу и пишу. Я должен делать все. И думаю, что это все на сегодня. Большое спасибо. Пока.